Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm Fally, and welcome to the free exploratory call for Ignite. There is so much I want to say, so much I want to cover, all of your questions and stuff I want to talk about what Ignite is all about. Wow, calls off to a great start. So feel free to drop your questions in the chat box, and I will get to them as we do this together. I'm going to start with telling you a little bit about the course and its basic structure. Let's get certain fundamentals out of the way before we get to the good stuff. So Ignite started with 15 women around my dining room table a couple years back, around 5 years ago, actually. And it has very quickly morphed and evolved into, I think at this point, we're close to 250 women with some of their husbands, and Emir Tashem taking over the whole world. The goal of this course is for there not to be a course. The goal of this course is for women to walk away feeling so embodied, so armored with the information that they need, that they can give this over to their daughters. My dream is that by the time your daughter is old enough to sit here, this should not be needed. This kind of course, this kind of content shouldn't be needed, because we will be a generation of mothers, fathers, women, and men who feel confident and secure giving over this information. So how this course developed, how it was designed, well, it was designed via my own journey. I never thought I was going to be the kind of person who would be giving a course on this kind of content. It was just that my life led me on this road of discovery and self-discovery. It wasn't always an easy road. In fact, it was most of the time a very difficult road where I was searching for answers that weren't easy to find. There was nobody giving them for me. And also, we're not raised in a world or in a culture that really encourages questions, especially around these subjects. So a lot of my search, a lot of my seeking was done privately, in a little bit of shame and a lot of silence and a lot of false starts, a lot of goose chases, trying to find information that didn't really exist because you didn't really know who to ask. And then as slowly I was learning more of this stuff for myself, I was coming to realize how many more women also needed this information. A big part of the frustration or the shame around this particular subject is that most people who struggle feel like they're all alone. I know that I did when I was first looking for information. And why was I looking for information? Well, there were so many reasons I was looking for information. Number one, I was really struggling. If you think you're the only one struggling when it comes to this subject, when it comes to intimacy, when it comes to sexuality, when it comes to the bedroom, well, hello, let me tell you, not only are you not the only one struggling, you're part of a vast majority of people who are having a hard time figuring this out. Most of the people that I talk to think that they're the only one, that everybody else has figured this out and they're the only one that haven't gotten it. Well, let me tell you, you're normal. You're normal. And I want you to know that. And I want you to be able to release a lot of the fear and a lot of the shame and a lot of the insecurity and finally have a safe space to come to learn and to ask and to rebuild the foundations that many of us never got. Another reason I was looking for this information was not only because I was struggling, but because I was evolving. A lot of the information that was given to me, and we're not even going to talk about whether it was given to me in a healthy way, in an unhealthy way, by the right people or by the wrong people, or whether it was the right information or the wrong information. The fact is, the information that was given to me at 18 was no longer relevant when I was 23 or 32, right? Because as women, and not just as women, because there are men on this call as well, and we'll talk about the men and how they fit into Ignite, our bodies are changing, our lifestyles are changing, our perceptions are changing, and our roles are constantly evolving. When I went to college classes and I was young, I was 17 when I got married, and I learned these halachos for the first time, I understood them. And I really did. I grasped them and I asked a lot of the right questions, but there's no comparison to understanding this content when you're 17 before you got married to when you're 24 and you've already had 3 kids and you're a lot more in it, right? And all of a sudden, the things you learned at 17, it's not that they're wrong, but they're very baseline and you need to evolve. But no one's teaching us that. No one's teaching us that this is information that we have to keep coming back to, and that it's very normal that a couple of years down the road, we're feeling like we don't know anything, or we're feeling that we're lost. And the problem is that because most of us feel that way, because it's normal, because we're evolving, we think that there's something wrong with us. We think that we're the only ones. And I'm here to tell you, you are absolutely not. And this is information that we're going to have to keep coming back to so many times over. Another reason I needed to come and learn about this information was something I just mentioned a minute ago. The information that I received, it wasn't always the right information from the right sources, given over in the right way. And so a lot of the things that I was coming with, they were to my disadvantage, right? And I feel like that is the case for so many people that I meet. So when I started this course, it wasn't because I intended on ever being here teaching this content. It was because I was on this search for years to figure out what I needed, what was going to work for me. And as I started embodying this, as I started figuring it out, people started talking to me, whether they were clients who were giving me their stories, whether they were friends, or sometimes they were just random people who felt like I was a person that they could share with. And I started noticing patterns, with the dominant pattern being, I am not the only one. And the other dominant pattern being, everyone thinks they're the only one. And here I am deciding that if I had the material, it was actually my job, it was actually my responsibility to make this as accessible as possible, so that my daughter, so that your daughter, so that our daughters-in-law shouldn't be sitting here in their adult life figuring or wondering, what's wrong with me? Why am I the only one who hasn't figured it out yet? I want our daughters to have a team of women that they can feel that they can go to with their questions, that they feel supported by, that they feel honored by, that they feel invited into when it comes to this subject, when it comes to their femininity and their womanhood. And I feel like we're here to create that. So let's talk about some foundations, the basic foundations of the course, and then we're going to get into the more interesting stuff, which are your questions, which I always find more exciting than the things I actually want to talk about. Okay, so Ignite has evolved since it initially began around my dining room table. When it first began, it was the 15 of us. It was scheduled for 1 day a week. It was 3 hours on Thursday afternoons. There was a little bit of a roundtable discussion. There was a little bit of a lecture. There were a little bit of exercises and some Q&A. And all of that was squeezed into 3 hours. And within 2 or 3 weeks of teaching it around my dining room table, it was very clear that 3 hours once a week for 5 weeks was not going to cut it. And so very quickly, the course evolved into something much more. It evolved into starting every module with a lecture. The lectures were initially supposed to be an hour. They tend to run closer to an hour and a half, almost 2 hours, depending on the week. Then participants were going back home with guided meditations, journaling exercises that they have an entire workbook to get through, and pleasure practices to embody and to incorporate into their lives each week. And then there was another whole portion added to the course content, which was a Q&A. So we would release the lecture on Sunday, and then Thursday afternoons, we would come together for a Q&A, which initially, again, started out being an hour and a half of question answers. Then it evolved into 2 hours of question answers. And as of last count, we were at 3 hours Thursday mornings for question answers, because ultimately that is the meat and potatoes of this course. It's the questions that you want to ask. It's the information that you never had access to. And so the lecture really sparks that. The lecture sets the tone for the work that we're going to be doing during the week, but the Q&As are what you bring back to me. It's what opened up inside of you and what you really want to know about, and that's what lights me up. So the Q&As, I mean, it's not a secret. I'll just say it right here. It's my favorite part of the course. It's because where I get to interact with you, you get to interact with me, and we get to the information that you really, really desire. So the way the course runs now, we finally have it on an automated platform, which is so much more user-friendly and accessible for everybody involved, where when you sign up, the course unlocks at a specific date where you receive an email letting you know that a certain module is available. So you'll get an email letting you know that module 1 is available. You click on the link, you watch the lecture. You can watch it slowly, you can pause it, you can double speed it, you can rewatch it, you can watch it as many times as you like. And then there's a little piece after that that gives you guidance on the home play. Yes, we don't call it homework, we call it home play in Ignite. And there's more links to the meditations that you can download and to the PDF of your workbook each week, your playbook each week. Then at the end of after you've listened to the lectures and you've done some of the home plays, you get to submit your questions for the Q&A. You can submit as many questions as you'd like throughout the module. I don't keep count. And in fact, we're instituting something brand new in prior cohorts to send questions for the Q&A, you would send it to my email. And there was a little bit of an anonymity issue, because as much as I don't share who sends in the questions on the Q&A, it's still awkward for some people to send in really intimate questions and their name is at the top of the email. So for this cohort, we started something brand new. There's an anonymous Google form where you can submit your questions, as many questions as you want, as often as you'd like, and I get them straight into a Google Doc, so I don't know who sends them, and we read them out loud Thursday mornings on the Q&A. Prior cohorts, we had the Q&As Thursday evenings. I'm sorry, Thursday afternoon, and because the Q&As were going for hours, I decided to move them back to Thursday mornings, so we go as long as we like. And like I said, at last count, these Q&As were about 3 hours long, and I love them. I really love them. We'll go as long as we need to until we get all of your questions answered. Yes, you can tell how excited I am. I'm stumbling over my words. The course content is available for you to watch and rewatch at any time up until 8 weeks after the course closes. So the course is 6 modules, and then you get an additional 8 weeks to re-listen to all the lectures if you'd like, to catch up on home plays that you haven't maybe gotten to, because it's a lot. It's a lot of content. There's a lot to cover, and I don't want anyone to ever feel rushed or that they have to accomplish it all. I know that for me, I'm an overachiever. I like to over-deliver, and Ignite was me taking years of pain and years of research and years of learning and years of discovery and trying to give it all over to you in a very, very short window of time. But I also know that it's not possible to listen to everything, to learn everything, and to integrate everything in the small window of time that I give you. So I do give you another 8 weeks to access course content. And then after those 8 weeks, the course is locked. You cannot access the content unless you've downloaded. So you can download meditations and you can download your playbook. And I encourage you to do so, because you're going to want to listen to them throughout the year. But then next year, next cohort, when the next cohort opens up, you join again free of charge. There's nothing you have to do. You will get the emails together with the next cohort letting you know that module 1 is reopened for you and you can rejoin. Why do I do that? Because like I said before, there's no way to integrate all of this information the first time you take Ignite, or even the second time you take Ignite, or maybe even the 5th time you take Ignite, because you are changing, you are evolving, you're different. I know that when I first created the Ignite, the first year, this was in January of 2020, was the first, 2020? No, January of, was it 2019? No, it was COVID, so it was 2020. It was the first, why am I mixing up the dates? I don't even know anymore, but it was the first cohort that I had ever given. And at the same time that I was giving the cohort, I was going through testing and paperwork letting me know that I was officially in complete menopause and that I would never have more children. And that was a huge adjustment. It was something that I had known because I am a cancer survivor and my fertility was always going to be in question, but it was something that I was adjusting to and really sitting with. And I had that paperwork and it was a big deal for me. And then the next year, by some miracle, I was pregnant. So I was teaching this content from a completely different place. And the next year after that, I was postpartum. So again, completely different place. So when I invite women to retake this course every year that I give it, it's because you're not the same person you were a year ago. So it's not just that I expect that the information kind of builds year after year, you change year after year. And so I want you to be able to come at this content with new eyes every single time that I give it. Also, and this is really what I'm passionate about, I'm not only here to give this information to you. I really care about your kids. I really care about your daughters. So maybe the first time you took Ignite, your daughter was 5, but maybe the 5th time you took Ignite, your daughter's 10 and she's entering puberty. And now you're getting ready to have all of these amazing conversations with her. So you're not just taking this for you, you're taking this for the people in your life that you're giving this information over to. And I think this is an ever evolving conversation. And there are so many questions that you're going to have this year that you may not have had last year. So that's really important for me to make this course accessible every year, free of charge. And, this year I was getting ready to put this course online So it's kind of automated instead of me having to reteach it from scratch each year. And my web developer and people I was talking to were saying, are you really sure that you want to do this? Are you really sure that you want to offer this course free of charge each year? It's very generous, and most people don't do that. Most people allow you to retake a course at a discounted rate, but this retaking a course free of charge each year is kind of unheard of. And I said, that's okay with me. That's really okay with me. I'm very comfortable. And they're saying, do you really want to say this on a live call that people are going to listen to? Like, you might change your mind next year. And I'm like, nope. I say this right here on the live calls that I'm going to post on my website. It's something that I absolutely stand by. I don't want people to have to pay twice for the same course, for the same content. Once you're in, you're in. This is an invitation into a tribe of women. Once you belong, you belong. You should belong forever. I mean, I charge for my content because that's my parnasa and I work really hard on it. But I really believe that once you're in, this is information that every woman should have access to. It shouldn't be coming at a premium, where this is information that I want your daughters to have for free. So I stand by that promise, and I expect to always stand by that. Let's see what else we have to talk about before we get to your questions. Yes, I wanted to say again, the Q&As are always going to be my favorite part, because the modules cover certain basic outlines, certain basic fundamentals that I believe every woman has to have. But the more nitty-gritty, the more detailed aspects, we're never going to cover them all. There's no way that one course that takes 6 weeks is going to cover everything that you want to know. So the Q&As are such an important part of what we do here. And I feel like if that's the gift that I get to offer the world, a safe place for all of us to ask questions, that is something that I feel very passionate about coming back to year after year. So even though the lectures are automated, I don't teach them live anymore. They're recordings of what I've given over last year and the year before that. And they do have mistakes in them. And my perfectionist inside is like, you should go back and you should edit them and you should delete them. And I'm like, no, we teach with mistakes, but then we come back and we go through the Q&As, and that's where you get me live. That's where we get to talk about all of your questions, all of your concern, some of the mistakes I may have made on the calls, we get to correct them, and we go from there. I so badly wanted to create this course to address women's interests and women's evolving needs. But there are men who take this course as well. And let me talk about that. A lot of men have texted me or emailed saying, why doesn't this course exist for men? Well, because I'm a woman and I can only talk about my experience. But I do have women calling me and asking me, hey, can my husband take this course with me? And my answer is unequivocally yes. I think this is information that all of us need, men and women. So this course is designed for women, by women, but I think it's very helpful for men to also sit in and listen in on the lectures and do some of the home plays if it's helpful for them. And why shouldn't it be helpful? If women don't know anything about our own bodies and how we're created and what turns us on and how to really sit with ourselves and learn the language of what ourselves are saying, how are men supposed to know this? And I see so many women and men struggle in the bedroom and they don't know how to be together and how to please each other and how to make it work. And of course we don't know how to make it work. We barely know our own selves, and intimacy really has a lot more to do with how well we know ourselves, our deepest parts of ourselves. Of course we don't feel comfortable and content being intimate with another person. Well, we've never really mastered this for ourselves. So I highly encourage that if there are husbands who would love to sit in on the classes with their wives, absolutely, this is definitely a safe space to do so. I do not allow men to join the WhatsApp group. The WhatsApp group is only for women. It's a safe space for women. But I do have men sending in questions to the Q&A, and I'm more than happy to answer them if I can. I do have to say again that this course is designed for women. So I have had men listen to the meditations and kind of, know that it was, we use she and we use feminine pronouns, but they can kind of change it in their heads. Same goes for the home play, for the playbooks. We ask questions that are geared more to women's bodies, but if men want to change it up, they can do so. I'm not ready to teach a course for men, but I really do pray that one day there will be one. I have to say, this is not a course that teaches halacha. We do touch on halachic ideas, but this is a course that more teaches the psychology and the hashkafa of intimacy. And hashkafa, I don't mean in a Jewish sense, although we do bring a lot of Jewish ideas into this course, but more in an applied psychological perspective, how it pertains to the Jewish woman. So we do talk about halacha, we touch on halacha. When women have halachic questions, I do my best to kind of give an overview without giving direct advice. I think that's something that only a Rav can guide you with. So I just want you to know that this is a very open course and it's psychological in nature. So sometimes I've had people come on the course and they'll disagree with something I'll say because they'll say, hey, this is the halacha, that's not the halacha. And I'm not really here for that. I'm much more here, again, for the psychological underpinnings. And I'll tell you a little bit more about why and how I got there, because when I learned this content, I had halacha down pat. I already learned halacha as a girl, right, as a kala. And then I found that the questions that I were having were not halachic in nature. They were more intimate in nature or emotional or psychological. And there weren't anyone there who were willing to, that I could go to answer those questions. So for me, it became really important to understand the psychology of intimacy. And I found that it's important in a halachic perspective as well for two reasons. Number one, I believe that Chazal really understood psychology. They understood psychology and they understood women's health. When you understand your own body and really understand your own body, then you can look at the Taharas Mishpacha and these laws with a completely fresh look, and you're going to start realizing how much sense they actually make. Chazal loved women. They revered women. They held women as sacred, and all of the Taharas Mishpacha was designed to honor and respect women's bodies and women's health. And I found that for years, I didn't feel that way. I felt the halacha went against everything I wanted. It went against everything that my body was saying. And it was only after I really learned to be with my body, after I really learned about intimacy from a psychological perspective, that halacha opened up a whole new vista for me. It just started making so much more sense. So I'm not here to teach halacha. I'm much more here to align ourselves with our natural body's rhythms. And then later, halacha starts making a lot more sense. Another reason why I completely lost my train of thought. Why I do it this way was because, I think it's the same thing. I think because Chazal really understand women's bodies, and also because when we understand women's bodies, we're going to come back to Chazal very easily. If there's something I forgot, I'm going to come back at this soon. I'm extremely informal. There's a part of me that's very perfectionistic, and I wanted this call to be very smooth and very clear. But let's face it, it's a rainy Sunday morning. I have not had nearly enough coffee, and this is what the classes look like. I just want you to know the lectures are a little more smooth, but the Q&As just feel like us having a conversation. And I'm not always great at conversation. I'm a great conversationalist, but sometimes I'm awkward. And that's great too. All right, let's go further with some of the things we need to be covered. I feel like the goal of this course is, yes, there's a lot of information. So you're going to learn a lot of ideas and content, but the real intention behind this course, or underlying this course, was to get women back in touch with the wisdom of their bodies. When I was pregnant with my first child, people kept asking me if I was going to go to Lamaze classes, if I was going to go to childbirthing classes. And I had no intention. There was something in me that was like, no, I just don't think I need it. I don't think I want it. Maybe I was lazy, but I don't think I was. I just had this very strong knowing that I didn't need it. And when people kept pressuring me, because I was very young when I had my first, people kept saying, are you sure? Are you sure? And I kept saying, no, there are millions of women who have given birth throughout the generations, and they've always managed to figure it out. Why do I believe that I need to learn this? Why can't I trust that my body already knows this? And that was the mentality that I came in with my first birth. And in fact, I learned only one thing. There was one piece of advice that I got before my first birth, and that has kept me sane and focused and grounded and connected to my body, and also gave me the ability to have 4 natural births without epidural or any pain intervention. And that information, that advice was, every contraction lasts the space of 3 breaths. That's it. And not quick breaths, not panting breaths, but slow, intentional breaths. 3 slow, intentional breaths, with the second breath being the height of the contraction, and the third breath being when the contraction is releasing or relieving itself. And that's the only information that I ever needed to get me through every single one of my births. Oh, when the contraction begins, all I had to tell myself was, this is a span of 3 breaths. And I learned this when I was 19 years old, way before I became a breathwork facilitator. And that was the only information that I ever needed to get me through 4 natural I don't want to say pain-free, but manageable births where the pain culminated into something very primal, beautiful, raw, and real, and very, very sacred and special. And that really highlighted something I always knew deep inside. The body really knows. There are secrets in the body. If we connect to those secrets, the secrets of the breath, the secret of what the pain is trying to do with us, what the contraction is moving us through, we have so much more power than we give ourselves credit for. And that's the underlying intention for the whole course. And it hasn't always been. You know, I think initially when I began this course, it was very about information. Like, let's give women information. Maybe it was about getting women out of pain, getting them out of stuck places. But right now, like I said, I've evolved. And my vision right now is, what if we can connect women back to the wisdom that they've always had, to the knowing of their own body? Because if we have that, if we can really listen to our bodies, if we can befriend our bodies, we have so much untapped potential, untapped strength. We can go back to Mitzrayim, where Yocheved and Miriam, when they were called into Paro, and Paro said, you know, we want to kill all the baby boys. And Yocheved and Miriam, Shifra and Pua, they said, well, we can't. They're not calling us. We're the midwives, but they're not calling us to their births. They're giving birth ki chayos heina, like animals in the field. And, you know, of course, the Medrash is like, did they mean this in a derogatory way? Or no, they meant this as in women were so in touch with their bodies that they no longer needed intervention. They were just able to give birth naturally, free-flowing, without pain. And that's my vision. That's my dream. I want to bring us back to that knowledge. And it's the knowledge of Chaya. And people don't know this, but Chaya is the name of Chava before the Chet in Gan Eden. She was complete Chaya. She was life itself. She is the mother of all life, right? And she became disconnected from that life force when she was exiled from the garden, and that's when she became Chava. And in Mitzrayim, when they connected again to the essence of Chaya, they were able to give birth pain-free, the same way Chava was able to do in the garden before the Chet, right? The curse of the Chet was that she would have Tsar Gidul Banim. She was going to have painful labor and delivery. And I believe that we can come back, that there was a knowledge that was lost. It was the knowledge of our own bodies. It was the knowledge of our inner wisdom. And my vision is to bring ourselves back there and to bring our children, our future generations back there, because our future generations are only here to bring us back to where we come from. We want to go back to that garden. We want to go back to our origins. We want to go back to connecting fully with our life force. Isn't that the time of Mashiach? And I believe that we can herald that. Mashiach has to be born to a woman. So we are all the mothers of Mashiach. Any one of us could be the mother of Mashiach. I know when I was pregnant, I kept saying, well, you never know. I might be carrying him, the one we've all been waiting for. We don't know. We are all the mothers of Mashiach, and we are here to herald this new time, which brings us back to the old time, to the time before time when we were so connected with our essence, with our life force. So that is my vision for this course. And yes, it builds on all the other visions that I've had for this course over the years. The vision of getting women out of pain, the vision of getting couples to feel comfortable together, the vision of getting us all united, and pleasure. Because yes, let's face it, this is about pleasure. So many of us feel stuck and intimidated when it comes to the bedroom. We don't feel like experts in our own body. We don't feel like experts in our marriage. We feel like we're stuck in the same sort of cycle that we can't seem to break. And my vision is, my dream is, let's do all of that. All of those ideas, all of those visions, let's bring it all here and see how much we can accomplish. And again, we don't have to accomplish it in 6 weeks. We can accomplish it in 6 years. We'll keep coming back and we'll keep evolving and growing together. So I do have to say, this is not therapy. And this course is really not meant for somebody who needs therapy. So if you're sitting here and you're wondering, you had a very difficult childhood, you had some abuse, molestation, exposure in your past that has been giving you a lot of cause for pain, this course is not meant for that. In fact, this course may trigger some of that. This course may bring up some of that unresolved pain inside of you. So if there's a question in your mind of, will this course heal my trauma? No, it absolutely won't. Will it trigger my trauma? Yeah, it probably will. So maybe this course is not for you. I do believe that this course should be for everybody, but I'm not here to sell it to somebody that this isn't the right fit for. If you're in therapy and you are getting the help that you need, and you do feel confident that you're ready to up level, to learn more, to expand your horizons, then absolutely, you're welcome to join us. But just keep in mind that this isn't therapy, and it will very likely bring things up to the surface for you. A little bit of trigger goes a long way in this course. So this is not the course that is necessarily all love and light all of the time. In fact, we go to some really dark places sometimes because our goal is to get back in touch with something very primal. People like to say about this subject, it's just so natural. All the animals do it. It's the birds and the bees. There's nothing to be ashamed of. And it's like, yeah, it is natural. Animals do this too, but you know what no one's talking about? Animals don't have a mind. They have nothing getting in the way. They're just completely in touch with their bodies. So our goal is, yes, to get us back to that very natural place, to be very in touch with our bodies, but the only way to do that is get out of our minds. So this course will make you feel like you're a little bit out of your mind at times because our mind is very much in the way of our bodies and our body's natural expression. So I'm not a very big fan. My training was not Jewish, and there's a downside to that. There's a plus side because it covered a gamut of things I don't think I ever could have gotten within the community. The downside is that it was very unsacred, and one of the biggest non-sacred aspects of the non-Jewish world when it comes to this subject is they're just like, it's all about the body. We can do anything. We can be like an animal. And there's a very animalistic element of bringing this information where we don't have to be tzanua. We don't have to keep halacha. What are you talking about? All of these old-fashioned, outdated ideas about intimacy and sexuality and what that means. We don't have to do anything like that. And this subject became very animalistic, very primal, and very raw. And I'm not a fan of that. I'm a fan of, yes, we do have to come back to the body because the body is holy and the body is the guide and the body knows the truth. And at the same time, we have to get our minds on board. Now, the problem with our mind is that most of the time our mind is full of conditioning, whether it's conditioning of this is bad, this is wrong, this is tameh, this is ugly, this is shameful, this is sinful, or I'm not pretty, I'm not perfect, I don't look like a model, I'm too fat, I'm never going to be that, I don't feel the way other people feel, I'm not having the same kind of pleasure, oh my gosh, this is so intimidating. So our minds tend to get in the way of our body's natural expression. So some people, like I said, the non-Jewish world, their whole attitude is get rid of the mind, like just go with the body. My attitude is, no, let's find out what is in the mind, what is standing in the way, and how can we reshape our minds in a way that is holy, that is pure, and that is completely aligned with the natural order of things. And the Torah has these answers. The Torah is really a fan of us really doing this in a holy and pure way, in a sacred way, but also in a pleasurable way. This is always going to be a Torah-based course. And this is what I learned over the years, that I maybe didn't grow up with a safe hashkafic way to ask all these questions. I didn't have safe mentors from a Torah perspective that I could come to with these questions. And my goal is to redesign that. Our whole way of doing things. In my days, a college teacher just taught, and none of us had the courage to ask questions. Today, college teachers are changing. They're much more intimate with the girls. They're developing long-term relationships. Today, the colleges are so much more equipped, and they have mentorship, and they do feel more confident talking to their college teachers, or I should hope, because that's starting to change. In my days, there wasn't that. This is my desire. My desire is to change that. We want to create a whole new generation of women who feel confident, who feel safe, who feel like they have the right information from a Torah perspective that they can give over and they can give to themselves. The body responds to what you put in the mind. So this is not that we should have animalistic tendencies and we should follow the animalistic nature of our bodies, but to recognize that if we just left it to our bodies, we would have no problem. It is always the mind that's in the way. But the Torah mind is not in the way. The Torah mind encourages this. I mean, the first mitzvah in the Torah, the first time God's voice was spoken to Adam, the first time God spoke to the first man was, he said, Peru Uravu. Like, he really couldn't think of anything else to say. He couldn't say like, Boker Tov, Ki Tov. Like, I created this beautiful world for you. It's wonderful, right? No, the first words God ever spoke to man was Peru Uravu, be fruitful and multiply. God created the world in 6 days. And then what did he do with his creation energy? Nothing. He rested, right? On the seventh day, God stopped creating. He rested. So what happened to that energy of creation, that energy of constant movement? God gifted it to Adam. And he says, it's yours now. You are the creator. I set the foundations of this world. And now you should procreate. You should keep creating. And that's what's so exciting about the course that we do, that it's really directly from God. This is God's This is his baton that he passed to us. And the problem is that we have forgotten that. We have forgotten how holy and sacred this is. We have forgotten Torah teachings. We didn't even know that Torah has beautiful teachings about pleasure and how a man has to pleasure his wife and how sacred and beautiful all of these things. And this is sacred, not secret. But we're living with 2,000 years of Christian influences being the idea that this whole subject is called original sin. And that's not what Judaism believes at all. And a very big part of this work is reclaiming our intention, our mitzvah, our desire around all of these things. So there's a balance between trusting the body, that the body already has all the answers, and reframing our minds around all of these things. And you'd be amazed, because it's not just enough to learn new information. We've been learning new information our entire adult life. The problem with the information that we're learning is that it's coming on the back of old information that we already have. And what do I mean by old information? Well, the first time that you learned about this subject was probably not Kala classes. Okay, if you're on this call, you're probably not one of those people. You probably were exposed at a much younger age, and the statistics show that people are often exposed, most people are exposed between the years of 8 and 12. Between 8 and 12 years of age is generally when we have our first exposure to these subjects. And most of the time, I would venture to say over 90% of the time, our first exposure does not come from our parents. It does not come from safe adults in our life. It comes from the media, it comes from city buses, it comes from books we've read, it comes from friends, right? It came from molestation, it came from abuse, it came from people that weren't the right people to give us the right information in the right way at the right time. So by the time you did come to college classes, by the time you did have appropriate conversations, you have years of inappropriate information, misinformation, and potentially very harmful information germinating in your mind. So this course is not just about information. And yes, while there is a lot of information, the fundamental aspect of this course is rewiring, finding out what old information really is informing us, even subconsciously. And this course is about finding that information and reprocessing information. How do we do that? So this is something that's very unique about this course. This is not just a lecture-based course. The lecture is the smallest part of this course. So yes, it's about an hour and a half each module, but it is the smallest part of this course. The biggest chunk of this course, and yes, is the Q&A, and we get to talk about your questions, and we get to reframe all of the things that you want to know. And the bigger chunk is the work that you get to do on your own. So each module has meditations where you get to listen. There are audio journeys. I'm a hypnotherapist. That was my trade, my licensure is hypnotherapy. So, and I was in advertising and marketing before that. So my skill is in helping people reframe their minds, right? Reframe, or in advertising, we called it manipulating, but I don't like that word when it comes to something more sacred. We learn to reframe our conditioning. So the meditations are designed to do just that. In some modules, we do some audio breathwork. So you get breathwork tracks, and I'm like pointing to my ears, where you get to listen to the breathwork tracks and breathe along with me. And breathwork is another way to rewire our minds and our nervous system, where we had pent up beliefs, pent up adrenaline, pent up trauma, and we get to work that out. So no, this is not a trauma-based course at all. It's very trauma-informed because of the work that I do privately and the work that I've been building towards all of my years. But again, this is not for you if you are worried that you have a lot of trauma and it might get triggered. It might be for you if you have trauma, if you also know that you have the support and you're ready to expand your horizons, like I said. There's also journal entries. And the journal entry, I believe that the journal for this course, let me see if I have it here. Nope, this isn't it. Let's pull it down. Is it this? Yes, this is the playbook. This is the playbook for Ignite. I don't know if you can tell how thick it is, but it is in total 138 pages. 138 printed pages. And I'm going to show you a little bit of what it looks like. I don't know how clearly you can see it on the screen. So you get a lot of questions with a lot of lines to answer them. These questions are like meditations. So these are not like school questions where you have to fill in blanks and take tests. You know, you are always free to skip questions, skip exercises, do them at your own leisure, whatever feels right for you. But every single question in this playbook is like a meditation. So it feels like a lot, and I do not expect or even want anyone to cover all 140 pages in in 6 modules, that's a little bit insane. And I don't want anyone to be pushing themselves to that degree. But my goal is to over deliver, to give you so much content that you could keep coming back to even after the modules are closed, or next year, do it a little differently, do some things that you didn't get to this year. But every question here is a meditation. It's something to help you dig a little deeper, to really find out, hey, what is sitting inside of me? What does need to a little closer inspection and maybe reevaluation and a little bit of remodeling, internal remodeling. So there's that aspect of the course. And then there are pleasure practices, because so much of this work is about heightening our sensitivity. And pleasure, by the time women get to the bedroom, we are so affected by everything we take in throughout the day that women's turn on is very different than men's turn on. And if women are not surrounding themselves with pleasure practices throughout the day, every day, then it's almost impossible for them to come to the bedroom at night and get it going. And women always feel frustrated about this. Men come home and they're just like, hi, I want to connect. And women are like, are you serious? No, I just spent 8 hours with the kids. So a lot of these practices are here to help women understand their movement, their sexuality, how to create a life that actually supports that, and for their husbands to learn this about themselves and their wives as well. And so that together you can create a life that actually supports both of you to more connection, more intimacy, more pleasure, and more thriving. So all of that is really packed into the course. And that's really the biggest, I think, sell of this course, that it's not just informational, it's relational, and it's intentional, and it's integrational. Is that a word? Integrational. I made it up. If it's not a word, I just made a word. I'm going to use it a lot. It's integrational. It's meant to really rewire you so that you become different. Someone had sent me an email, someone who took the course last year, and I actually put that out in one of the marketing emails that I sent out a week or two ago, where she said that she took the course last year and she doesn't feel that she changed, like that anything really changed in her life as a result. And I really encouraged her, if you can, because you might be very busy, come back again this year and see for yourself, once you start redoing the modules, did you not change at all? Because it's usually when people come back for a second time or a third time, and they start doing the meditations again, or they start doing the exercises again, they're like, whoa, I couldn't answer this last year. This year I'm seeing such different things. And you start realizing you really are changing. But the shifts that we're looking for in this course, they're not monumental shifts. You might have monumental shifts, but they're more subtle, because pleasure is very, very subtle. Intimacy is very subtle. It's about knowing the deepest parts of ourselves. And when we say that still waters, right? The deepest parts of ourselves are very, very still. So Ignite is about really cultivating a lot of inner stillness to get to the truth of who we are. So in the beginning, it could feel a little triggering. There's a lot of information. There's a lot of overhauling that happens. There's a lot of content being thrown at you, but the real changes are so subtle and happen over time. And to me, that's what I'm looking for myself in my life. And you're going to start recognizing those pieces in your life as well. What else before I get to some of your questions? I do have to say that while this course covers so much content and there's so much information, the goal of this course is not answers. It's really not about having answers, because I find that what women are most out of touch with is their desire. They feel like their desire does not sync up to their husband's desire, or maybe they're just so tired and burnt out that they haven't had desire at all. And I feel like desire is mostly about questions. It's about coming back to curiosity. It's about coming back to that place of openness. So Ignite is all about women coming back to a place where they feel safe asking questions, where they feel safe being curious, where they feel safe to explore, because that's what sparks desire. It's not answers. And you will get answers to a lot of your questions, but your questions will most likely generate more questions. So one of the most beautiful things I see happen as a result of Ignite or Vessel, the other course that I teach, is that women who leave these courses, they become very thirsty for more information. So I've had women leave Vessel and then decide to go back to school to become social workers. And that's so exciting for me. I've had women leave Ignite and then decide that they wanted to become Kala teachers. So there's a Kala teacher, actually the Kala teacher that I trained by, her name is Rachel Goldbaum. You should definitely look her up. I love her to bits. I think that if you are ever considering training as a Kala teacher, she's the only person that I recommend. She has a whole class where I think like 85% of her students right now are people who have taken Ignite with me and then were motivated and inspired to go and extend their learning. So that's also something very beautiful, that Ignite is really a launch pad for so many of the other things that you're going to want to know. I have women who leave Ignite and then all of a sudden want to go off birth control, not because I teach that, but because they are so in touch with their bodies right now that they realize, wow, I don't actually want to put hormones into my body. I want to listen to my body. I want to understand its wisdom. And they go on to learn more about natural planning, the fertility awareness method, and they're all porting from my class into other people's classes who give all of that. They're going to learn more about the Taharas HaMishpacha. A lot of women come off this course and realize, wow, the last time I learned these halachos were when I was 18 and before I had my 6 kids. Maybe it's time to, to navigate that in a different way. So I'm very, very excited that this is what this course does. It really generates more questions, more than answers. It gives you permission to keep asking questions. And I feel like the questions are so important because we've been very shut down from asking questions, from feeling that like it was safe. We feel ashamed. We feel like we must be the only one having these questions. We feel like we're going to be judged for having these questions. And that's why I'm so, so passionate about bringing that permission back to women and men. Yes, men send in questions to the Q&A as well, and I answer them to the best of my ability. And again, I do want to say that I try to shy away from halacha on the Q&A. I keep it more to practical aspects. Halacha is always something that you're going to have to ask your own personal Rav or mentor. And with that, people like to ask me what my haskama is for this course, and I don't have any, and I don't want any. And I say this every single year. I don't have anybody who gives a blanket haskama on this course. I have my own rabbis that I work with, and my encouragement is, and I hope that each one of you has your own rabbi, your own mentor, and your own guide. And I actually understand that a lot of people don't, because having a connection with a Rav is very intimidating, especially when it comes to these subjects. So one of my passions are, if we can get women more comfortable asking questions, if we can get them to feel safer in their own body, then maybe they'll start feeling safer developing a relationship with a Rav. But one of the reasons that I don't give a haskama on this course is because there's no way to give a blanket statement that everything we're going to teach on this course can be covered by one haskama. Again, the Q&As are very open. We cover so much ground, and I never want to be like, I can't answer a certain question on the Q&A because I don't know if my Rav would be okay with it. So I have a Rav, many Rabbanim that I turn to when I have questions, but I don't give any haskama on this course. It is really up to you. If you're the kind of person who has that question, who gives a haskama, you really have to turn to your own Rav and ask your Rav if they advise you to take this course with me. And some people say, well, my Rav doesn't know you. They can't tell me if your course is good for them. Well, then they can always reach out to me. I'm very accessible. My email address is straight up on my website. You can always respond to the marketing emails that get sent out. I'm very reachable. And if your Rav has any questions for me, they are more than welcome to reach out, and I can answer any questions for them. There was one year that I did give out the names of my rabbis, because not publicly, privately, because someone kind of bullied me into it. I'm just going to put it out there. Yeah, I was kind of bullied into it. And I violated my own principles by giving it to them. And then they called my 2 rabbis. And of course, my rabbis gave glowing recommendations upon me because that's what they do. They're my rabbis. They know me. They love me. They believe in me. So they're going to give glowing recommendations. Like, what were you thinking? Of course, my rabbis are going to say nice things. And then this woman had serious issues with some of the content that was delivered on the course. And it was so interesting that they already had the haskama, and it wasn't enough, because my haskama, my rabbis are not going to be able to tell you anything. Only your mentors, your guides are going to be able to guide you in this. And I think it's really important, because as you're going to take this course, a lot of information is going to come to the surface, and you're going to have a lot of questions, and you're going to have to figure out how to apply those things to yourself personally. And that's where your rabbis and your mentors come in. My rabbis can't do that for you. So that's really important. What else? Just trying to see what notes I took that I need to cover. And I hope you're asking questions in the Zoom chat, because I cannot wait to get to the stuff that you want to know. I do want to say that part of what led me to create Ignite was a feeling that there was something wrong with me, that I was broken, that I must be the only one struggling. One of the joys of me having done this work over years was the recognition and the trust that actually I'm not broken. Our bodies make so much sense. If you're struggling, there's always a reason for it, and it might not be the reason that you think. And the problem was that for years when I was going to therapy, therapists were giving me advice. They were giving me tools and practices and things to do, kind of like to override my system. But no one actually taught me Your body makes sense. There's something in there. There's information for you that your body has for you. And nobody taught me how to do that. It took me years to learn to listen to the language of my own body. And once I listened to what my body needed and to what my body was trying to tell me, everything unfolded quite naturally. So this is the goal for Ignite, to help you realize you're not broken, your body makes sense, and we're going to help you figure this out. I do have to say, though, that Ignite is not going to fix you. If you're struggling with certain areas, do not expect to not struggle as a result of taking Ignite. In fact, for many people, as a result of taking Ignite, things get a little worse before they get better. I know this is amazing marketing. Here I am, I'm trying to sell you my course, and I'm like, actually, it's going to be really hard at first. It'll get really bad before it gets really good. But it's not going to get bad in a way that you're not going to be able to handle. It's an unwinding, right? So if we want to rewire our brains, we can't just stuff new information there. We first have to go to the old information. And sometimes that old information is a little painful, right? So it becomes a little painful when we have to go down into our level of conditioning. And of course, when we're in pain, our bodies can't perform in a beautiful, pleasurable way. It just doesn't make sense to force our bodies to do things when our minds are not on board. But ultimately, as a result of that rewiring and that unwinding, we can bring forth new experiences. So this is a process that takes time. So when people come and text me or email me and they say, I took Ignite and I got so triggered, I'm like, yeah, what did you think this was going to be? Like a magic pill? This is a reprocessing. And the beauty of this work is that if your husbands choose to do this with you, you can do this together. One of the key things for me was when I started this work and when I was going to therapy, I really thought I was broken. So I was the one going to therapy, and my husband, this poor guy, was waiting at home, waiting for me to be fixed. And, every time I would come home from another session, he would be like, are you fixed yet? I mean, no, he wouldn't say those words, but I felt like that. I felt this almost need to prove that I was fixed, but I wasn't being fixed. I wasn't going anywhere. And what I learned over time, going to school and really studying the psychology of this, is that the real healing comes when we can be seen, when we can be held. And when I feel that when couples can do this together, when these lectures and the Q&As and the course content can generate real conversations between two mature adults who are ready to explore this together, even though there may be triggers coming up, the healing that evolves as a result is so profound, because you get to do this with another person. You get to do this in a place of safety and love and holding. And think about it. Most of the wounding that we have around this subject is wounding that happened in isolation. You got information and then you had no one to talk to about it. You were molested or abused and it happened in secret. Or you weren't prepared, like your mother was not the kind of person that you could talk to about this information. So you got your first period and you thought you were dying and you had all of this wounding and this trauma and you didn't know what to do. And so a lot of this course, so much of the healing that happens in this course is not just the information, is that you get to do this with other people who see you, who really get you. And if one of those people is your husband, you are so lucky. But even if it isn't, you get to do this with other women who really get it. So even though on some level, not all of your issues in the bedroom are going to be checked off the list right away, it may actually take a couple of months and maybe even a couple of years for you to have that thing that you so desire. You're going to feel the entirety of the time that you're getting something, that you're on the way, that something is changing. And it may not be what you expect. Like you may come in and say, hey, my issue is with orgasm, and that's the thing I really want to learn about. But then 6 weeks pass and you realize that's actually the least of the things. I want to learn about pleasure, and I want to learn about slowness, and I want to learn about stillness, and I want to learn about making eye contact with my spouse, and I want to learn about why it's so important to go out on dates. And the orgasm, you'll get there, but it may not be your primary focus anymore. So much of this course is about teaching women and men, you make sense, and you're not alone, and we can do this together. So information, even though it's like the least part of this course and it's not the goal, I do want to say that information, it changes you. Because while Ignite is not going to fix you, we respond to the information that we have. So when you know that it's a cloudy day today, right, you put on a coat. That's a physical act that you take towards the information that you have. But also when your body lets you know that you're hungry, there's a hunger in there, you take action. One of my teachers, Alain de Botton, actually, he's not my real teacher. I've never met him, but I call him my teacher because I love his books. I love his work. He wrote in one of his books, he says, sex is emotions made physical. And it's true because the body cannot lie. The body always knows. The body keeps the score and the body always wins. The body cannot lie. You can hold your breath. Try it. Try it right now. Take a deep breath in and hold it. And don't let it go. Don't let it go for as long as you can. And some of you can do that for 10 seconds. Some of you can do for 30 seconds. And some of you, if you practice breathwork, may even be able to do it up to 4 minutes. Good for you. I'm really proud. But at some point, you're going to have to let that breath go. Because the body always wins. And when it comes to the bedroom, the body always wins. And the body is conditioned and the body responds according to its conditioning. So the information that we have, the deconditioning and the reconditioning that we do ultimately will affect the way your body responds, but it's a lengthy process, right? You can't just decide to change information in your body, in your mind, and then your body automatically responds, especially if this information has built up in your mind over years. If your first exposure to this information was when you were 8 years old, and now you're 38 years old, that's 30 years of unwinding that we have to do. It doesn't take 6 weeks. It may not even take 6 years. It may take a long time, but you will get there. It's just a very, very slow process. It's a sacred process. So again, this isn't about information, but the information that we do get is going to ultimately evolve into something that enables you to live the life you deserve to be living. Okay, let's talk a little bit about my training. And all I have to say about my training is I'm not going to talk about it because the real training, I don't have any sort of credentials that say I am the right person to teach this subject. I mean, I did achieve credentials over the years, but when I first started teaching this, it was really my own journey. It was people saying, hey, can I talk to you? When I started a lot of this work, I don't like that this is where I started, but I'm going to just put this out there. I was a cancer patient at 16, at a time when nobody said the word cancer. In my community, it was yena machala or poo poo poo. You just didn't say cancer, right? When I would tell people, hey, I have cancer, people would say, don't say that. And I'm like, why? Because al teftach pele satan. And I'll be like, why? I already have cancer. He's going to it's already here, So I was that person who never shied away from talking about things that were very real. And then after I was already in recovery or in remission, I used to get anonymous calls from people saying, are you the girl that isn't afraid to talk about cancer? Can I talk to you? And I became that person that put out a book about cancer because there was nobody else talking about it. And so the same thing happened with my journey around intimacy. There was nobody talking about the things I needed to know. And so when I discovered those things, I felt very comfortable sharing that information with other people. And eventually that led me to go to school for this. So yes, I did go to intimacy school, to school for intimacy and relationship counseling. And I've mentioned this before on other intro calls that I've given, that when I was in school, a lot of the people in the course, they didn't know how to, what should we do? How should we tell people that we're in sex school? That's a weird thing to say when you go to a simcha and people are like, oh, what are you up to these days? And you're like, oh, I'm in school. And they're like, what are you in school for? And then you're like, sex, what do you do? So our teacher said, well, let me tell you something, get very comfortable talking about it. And when you do, around 80% of the people that hear what you're in school for are going to have the same response. They're going to say, can I talk to you? And so we got very comfortable telling people what we were in school for. And my teacher was actually wrong. It's not 80% of the people who will say, can I talk to you? It's fully 120%. Okay, it's because it's everybody that you talk to and their sisters, spouses, and everybody else that they know. Everybody, when they hear that this is your specialty, says, oh my God, can I talk to you? So I did go to school for this, and my schooling again was about the psychology of intimacy. And then because of that, I felt very strongly that I wanted to continue my education, and I did go to learn to become a Kala teacher. Not because I ever intended on teaching Kalas, that's not what I do, but because I felt like once I learned this from a non-Jewish, more secular perspective, I felt like it was really important for me to reclaim this knowledge from our Masorah, from our tradition. And I'm so glad that I did that, because it really opened up a whole new world for me to really understand Chazal through a completely different lens. And I get so excited to be able to give that over. So no, again, this is not a course on halacha, but I do find that so many women, the questions that they bring into the Q&A really show me that today women, we don't have a strong grasp on halacha. When was the last time we actually studied these subjects? When was the last time we felt like we had a strong basis, a strong knowledge in these ideas? Even though we do practice the Haras HaMishpacha and we live our life by them, I have found that even for myself, someone who's very confident with my body and the subject, just learning a little bit more about halacha changed the way I ask questions, changed the way I feel I can go to a Rav. There used to be that a lot of the times I would have a shaila and I wouldn't even send it to the Rav. I would just immediately discount it as like, oh, this is not kosher, and I would start it again. And then just learning so much more about my body, about the messages it was trying to tell me. I learned so much about, no, this is actually probably kosher. And I taught a lot of women about don't be afraid to ask questions. And I feel like there's so much more available to you than you could possibly believe. So that is my training. My training is secular, my training is Torah-based, and my training is still evolving. Who knows where I'm going to go next? I'm never finished learning. One of the joys about finally putting this course on an automated platform is that it frees me up to go back to school. So who knows what more I can bring into these courses as we come back year after year. This is not a course on relationships. I do have to say this. So while I think it's fabulous that husbands and wives can do this together, it's not a relational course. There's one module, module 6, where we do talk about relationships. But this is really a course about the body, about coming back to the body, because it's really about your relationship with yourself. For some of you who know that I've taught another course, I teach another course called Vessel. And there's a question like, which one should I take first? I have to say, my belief is that Vessel must come first. Vessel has to come before Ignite, because Vessel is someone feeling very comfortable and safe in their own psyches, in their own bodies, before we move into intimacy and sexuality and sharing that with a partner. But I don't judge. The truth is that Ignite always sells more than Vessel does, because it's a subject that is much more intriguing for people. But if you were ever unsure which course to take first, my recommendation is always to take Vessel, because you really do need a very solid foundation and security of knowing yourself within yourself before you move into more relational things. And again, Ignite is not about relationships, but because it is about intimacy and sexuality, those are relational subjects. And I always feel that it is more helpful when you do have a better basis of that content inside of yourself. But you can do these courses in any order that you want. If you only take Ignite, that's fine. But the reason I believe in that is because your relationships can only benefit when you have a very solid relationship with yourself. So sometimes people do Ignite, and then it creates a little level of distance between them and their spouses, and it's very unintentional. It's not because I actually feel that like, oh my gosh, you should separate from your spouse. But it's more that as we do this work, we tend to become very invested in learning the language of our bodies, and hopefully our spouse can keep up with us. Sometimes we do need a little more space. I do have to put this disclaimer out there. Again, I know it's fabulous marketing. I'm doing a great job selling my course. Someone's asking, is there harm in doing Ignite first? I don't think so. I think as long as you're going in with an open mind, right? As long as you understand what Ignite can bring to the surface and why I recommend Vessel first, there's really no right or wrong way to do this. Like, I actually taught Ignite before I taught Vessel. My first cohort of Ignite came before my first cohort of Vessel. So there's really no right or wrong way, but I do find that people who have taken Ignite first and then a year later take Vessel, they're like, oh, wow, it's so, like, now I really get it. And then when they take Ignite a second time, after having taken Vessel, they're like, wow, my whole perspective on Ignite changed now that I've taken Vessel. But you're not going to suffer by taking Ignite first. But it is something that I just like to put out there. Like, if you're questioning, then again, it's not really so relevant, because I only open each course once a year, and Vessel is ending now. We just started our last week in Vessel. And I don't open Vessel for another year until after Sukkot. So I'm not even sure why I'm mentioning it. Although, whatever. And we're very informal. We mention everything we have to mention. Okay, I do have to say, if you're not sure this course is right for you, it probably isn't. Okay, you could see I'm really good at selling myself. I'm shooting myself in the foot like a million times over this call. And it's because I believe in radical honesty. Like, for me, it's what you see is what you get. So you see, I don't even dress up to come onto these calls. Like, it's like I actually came down here and I tested out my Zoom, and I was like, Fally, you're not wearing nearly enough makeup. And I ran back to my house to like put on a little bit of makeup. I'm like, this is as good as it gets. I don't dress up for my calls. I'm very real, because I feel like this course is very real. So I'm not lying to you. I'm not trying to sell you on something that isn't a perfect fit for you. Most people, in fact, I think all of the people that I want on the course have all signed up because their bodies, there was like a full body yes. There was something in them that knew this is right for me. And if you're not sure, then it probably isn't right for you. Or maybe it's not the right time. And I'm not a big fan of, like, if you're insecure, you don't think it's right, you don't think it's the right time, wait, this course will Amir Hashem be around next year. Please don't push yourself. I'm not here to convince anybody. I really want you to feel that you're doing the right thing at the right time. And if you're not sure, like, maybe you need something like a little bit different, I'm happy to make recommendations. There are so many amazing people that I have gotten to know as a result of doing this work. I have friends who teach Tahara Samashpacha refresher classes. I have friends who teach about the fertility awareness method and natural birth control and body tracking. And I have friends who teach marriage counseling, and I'm so excited to like offer you their information and send you their way. So this is my passion, is about getting people the information and the help and the resources they need. So don't ever be afraid to reach out and ask me if I can make a recommendation for you. It probably takes me like a month to answer my emails. I'm terrible at that. Like the mundane parts of life, I'm not good at. But if you send me an email, I will try my best to respond with a recommendation. So I did get some questions. Wow, we're finally up to the questions part. Let's talk about some of the things you wanted to know. Somebody asked me if this is a course that is appropriate for women who are single. Yeah, sure. I mean, why not? We do talk about spouses, and we don't talk about sex, and we do talk about pleasure, but a lot of this course is about your internal infrastructure, right? So you don't have to be in a relationship to go through these ideas and to start doing the meditations and the practices for yourself, because it's not limited to partnership. So of course there are going to be certain aspects of the course that are about partnership, that are about sex, that are about connection, but those are only a small part of the course, and the larger fundamentals of the course are more about your conditioning and your programming. So if you're single, you're curious, and you're ready to take the course, absolutely. I do want to say again that I don't censor everything. So if you're worried about being exposed to content that you may not be ready for, you probably will be exposed, right? I'm not gonna make the content less available just because there are single women on this course, but I have had single girls on this course, and as long as you're prepared for the content and the information that comes through, I am more than happy to have you on the course. That being said, is this a course for women in Shana Rishona? No. So while I'm okay with single women taking the course, I don't believe that a woman in Shana Rishona should take this course. Why? It's really time for you to just figure it out with your husband. I feel like the first year, there's so much learning involved in that first year. You're getting to know so much about each other that you really don't need this excess of information in the first year. I feel like if you're already married, if you're in Shona Rishona, give yourself the break, give yourself that time to really connect with your spouse, to make mistakes. Shona Rishona is supposed to be messy. Like, let's face it, it's supposed to be messy. It's not supposed to be happily ever after. You're not supposed to click immediately. And I want everybody to have the Shana Rishona of them trying to figure it out by themselves. And you can always come to this course next year. Should you be taking it if you're pregnant? Why not? Like, why not? I think I gave this course when I was pregnant 1 year. So I think that there's always an opportunity to learn and to grow. Could you take it when you're postpartum? For sure. If you're a Kala, I don't recommend taking this course. Again, because you're learning Kala classes for the first time. You're already learning halacha. There's a lot of content you're busy absorbing right now as a Kala. Also, as a Kala, you're full of so much. You're literally getting ready for your Yom HaChapa. There's so much happening for you. I don't know that this is the right course to take when you're a Kala. So if you're not engaged, if you're just single and ready for this information, for sure. But if you're a Kala / Shana Rishona, I don't know that it's the right course to take. Again, if you're postpartum, why not? If you're capable of taking in a lot of information and listening to the lectures, I don't know how postpartum you are. If you're like a minute postpartum, probably not. But if you're 6 weeks postpartum and you feel like you're able to keep up, and for sure. I don't think that there's a right or wrong way to do this. Everybody has to know their own body and what they're ready for. What else? I'm looking more at my notes. Okay, someone sent me a question saying that she just took Vessel for the first time, and she heard that I said it on last year's call that doing it back to back is a lot, but she really wants to hear the modules. Does it make sense to sign up but not participate fully, or better to wait a year and give it my all? It doesn't matter. I do say it is very, very a lot to do Vessel and Ignite back to back. Very, very a lot. Wow. Okay. It's very, very a lot to do both courses back to back, because if you've taken Vessel, you'll know that it's about 10 hours of content a week. And Ignite is a little bit more. Ignite would probably be closer to 12 hours of content a week. Think about it. It's probably 2 hours of lecture on Sunday. That's when the module opens, because it's the lecture, it's the explanation of the homework. So that's 2 hours on Sunday. Then you have probably another 3 hours on Thursday of the Q&A. So that's 5 hours. And then the plays, the home plays. So those are meditations that you listen to 3 times a week. There's journaling, there's pleasure practices. So you can easily, if you devote like an hour a night to doing the home plays, that's another 5 hours. So it's easily 10 hours, if not more. And then again, that's if you're doing everything that I give you. But even if you're doing it on a very low scale, like even if you're just doing the lectures, the Q&A, and like 2 hours of you're not doing 2 hours, you're doing like 3 hours. So that's like 8 hours. Yeah, that's a lot. Wow. Yeah. So it's a lot. It's a lot of content, and that's just Vessel, but like Ignite is even more. Again, it's up to you. And if you're the kind of person who can pace yourself, if you're the kind of person who's like, you know what, I really just love listening. I love being in the classes. I don't need to do everything. I just want to listen. I want to absorb, and I'm not going to pressure myself. Then by all means, I'm like that. I have no problem going back to back with things because I'm a lifelong learner. I love dedicating myself to information, to practices. So even though it's a lot, personally, I do very well with a lot. So you have to know yourself. But if you're finding that you're drowning in Vessel and you can't keep up and you're just not functioning, probably it's not the best idea to take Ignite back to back. But I like what you said. Like if you just intend to show up very skim, and you intend that next year to do a little more fully, then absolutely. I mean, you know yourself, so trust yourself in this. And again, it can't hurt. Like I've had people who signed up and then realized halfway through that it was not going to work for them this year because they had some family simcha pop up or an emergency, or life just wasn't working out the way they wanted to. And there's a relief in knowing that you don't have to finish the course. Like even if you drop it, you can always come back next year. You never have to feel like it's a waste of money because you didn't complete the course, because the course reopens. And one of the reasons that I do lock you out of the course after a certain amount of time is because a very big part of this course is being able to do it with a cohort. For one of the reasons being that I feel like a lot of our pain around this, a lot of our trauma around this happened when we were hit with this information in isolation. So a lot of the healing happens in community, right? Being able to learn this, ask questions. We have the WhatsApp chat that is hopping. There are so many amazing conversations that happen on the WhatsApp chat. Don't worry, if you don't have WhatsApp, you're not missing out because everything gets ported over to the Q&A as well. The other reason that I lock you out of the course is because I know that there's very little motivation to complete a course when it's all on your own. So it's better for you to do it in a small amount of time, and yes, maybe pressure yourself a little bit to get it all done, and then know that we're locked out for now. You have integration for the rest of the year. You are able to download the meditation so that you can do them at any time. You do have the playbook printed out so you can do them at any time. And then next year, when next cohort opens, we get to start again from fresh with a whole new group of women to support us in this learning. Okay, another question. Does this information help with nursing clean? So I am like mixed on this because I can't tell you yes. Okay, I can't tell you yes. But what I have seen is that as a result of taking Ignite, women have gotten so much more knowledgeable about their bodies, about the language of their bodies, about being in tune and in sync and in rhythm with their bodies. They've seen very magical things happen as a result of embodying and implementing this information. So I get very, very excited about that. Women have come on this course on the Q&As and shared so many cool things happening. Like I've had women after infertility getting pregnant naturally, which is so cool. And I've had women who learned how to navigate their menstrual cycles in a better way, less pain. They're not bleeding as long. Some of the women even managed to figure out how not to bleed at night so that they didn't have to use any sanitary products. Believe it or not, it's very doable. I figured this out, which is so cool. And I can't say that I got it with perfect consistency, but there was a time where I was like, this is crazy. This is really happening for me. So there's a lot that's going to happen for you as a result of doing this course. Is nursing clean one of them? It might be, but I can't promise. I can't promise any of those things because a lot of these things are like a natural evolution that honestly was never my intention. It's very exciting for me. It's very validating for me to see that by just putting a little bit of information out there, just giving women a little bit of information, it goes a long way because the body really takes over. The body really does have all the answers. And if we come in with just a little bit of opening, the body is so happy to take over the rest. I'm going to move into the Zoom chat where some of you have asked questions because I finished all the questions that came in on emails. Let's see what you guys wanted to know. Okay, let's see. Somebody asked me in a private message if we can have a call before Ignite begins to do an intention setting. So we did that before Vessel this year. So even though the modules open at a certain date, what we did before Vessel is we had an extra call before the course where we set intentions, where we got to know each other a little bit, where I walked everybody through the site and how it's going to work because the site is fully automated. It's very user-friendly. This is the first year that I've done this. So I was a little nervous before we opened Vessel if people were going to be able to figure out how to navigate the site. So I did an extra call before to walk everybody through it. Everybody figured it out. There were no glitches. I'm super excited that it worked out so well and to port that over to Ignite. So I actually do plan on giving an extra call before Ignite. Like again, a welcome call to set intentions, to talk about the course and what you can expect. And you can sign up to Ignite up until the day before. Okay, so if the course opens Matzah Shabbos, December 31st, it was initially going to open up Sunday. I think Sunday is December 31st, so it's opening up December 30. But something that happened in Vessel, women started asking if we could release the course content Matzah Shabbos, so they had more time to listen to it. And I was like, yes, I'm happy to do so. So you can sign up until the day the course begins. So you may miss the intro call, but don't worry. If we have any calls for the course, they're always recorded. And they always get uploaded to the course platform. So even if you haven't been on any calls live, and that's something that's so important. I live on the East Coast, so all of my timing is Eastern Standard Time. So you never have to feel pressured to get onto any call in my time zone because the lectures are all pre-recorded. The Q&As are 10:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Thursdays, but they are also recorded. So if you can't make it, don't worry, submit your question. Your question will get answered on the call, and you can always re-listen to it later. They do get published on the user platform a little later. So you never have to worry about missing anything. Okay. Usually I do close registration. Like I said, the night of the signups, there are always stragglers because what happens is you guys end up being my best advertisements because I'm not great. Like I have a very small mailing list and I advertise my WhatsApp statuses. That's it. But then like a week or two after the course begins, people start emailing me like, my sister is taking your course and she's so different. She's like 5 minutes into your course and she's speaking differently. I want what she's having. So I always have stragglers who come in like a week or two after the course begins. So it's always okay. I always end up signing up people a little late, but and you don't miss out on much because like I said, everything's pre-recording. All right. What else? Someone says you left out the part that it's the best course. No matter how much you end up doing, it still gives you so much. Yeah, I think that's really important because like I said, I'm an over deliverer, I'm an over producer, but I always tell people if you do the bare minimum, I said this on the Vessel call last week, actually, I'm going to repeat it here, even though some of you are going to hear this for the second time. My view, my take on healing is that people think that healing is from go to point A to point B. Like I'm in pain, I need to get out of pain. And I'm going to know that I'm healed when I've reached point B, when I'm out of pain. But then there's this in between, right? What happens when you're in between point A to point B, like this journey in between? And they're like, am I healed yet? Am I healed yet? Am I healed yet? Every day they wake up and they're like, is it now? Is it now? Is it now? Like, is it Shabbos yet? Is it Shabbos yet? You know? And my view on healing is very different. My view on healing is imagine you're a boat in the middle of a vast ocean and you turn your steering just 1 degree to the left. Just 1 degree. Nothing changes for you when you turn your steering 1 degree to the left. But then if you keep journeying, eventually you end up on a different continent. Whereas before you may have wanted to go to Australia, and now you turned your boat 1 degree to the left, and then you end up in South Africa, right? So over time, as you continue journeying, you are going to end up in a very, very different place than you would have expected. But the real healing happens when you turn your boat 1 degree to the left. So my goal for Ignite is that even though I've delivered so much content, if you do just 1 degree of the work that is offered to you, you are going to end up in a very different place. So that's the beauty of this course, that you don't actually have to do all of it. You don't even have to do a lot of it. If you do a very little, you're going to get so much more than you would ever expected. Next question. Do you think that Ignite, while it may bring things up and make things harder, do you feel like it provides a path forward to healing? Yes, it absolutely does. I feel like that classes I've gone to in the past made me feel more sad because they highlight what I'm struggling with and give 1 or 2 suggestions that I've already incorporated. And then I feel like the road has ended. Right, so that's something you have to know about Ignite. This is not about suggestions. I don't give you suggestions. I don't know you, right? So I can't be like, do A, B, C, D, and E. This is not about suggestions. This is about learning yourself. Whatever you're struggling with, there's a reason you're struggling, okay? Your body makes sense. If you know how to listen to it long enough, you are going to find the answers, and the answers are inside of you. They're not inside of me. So I don't even give suggestions. I give you exercises. I give you paths, not to get to where you want to go. I give you paths inside of yourself. These exercises help you rediscover parts of you, listen to what your body wanted to say all along. So like I said, it might get a little worse before it gets better, but even while it gets worse, it's not really worse. I'm not using the right words because it's going to give you more information. You're going to start feeling like, wow, I know myself to a whole new level. So I may not have gotten everything I wanted to get yet, but now I can look in the mirror and say, I'm my own best friend. You know, when I was going to school, in module 1, we were literally 1 week in, and I was so triggered. It was I was 1 week into a 2-year program. So We're talking like heavy schooling. And we had a Facebook group where all of the classmates were, would post and connect. And one woman wrote about 1 week into the course. She says, it's crazy. I've been doing the exercises and I went into the shower and I passed by myself in the mirror and I caught this like glimpse of myself from the corner of my eye. And I was like, and she was like, that was the first time in my life that I was able to look at myself in the mirror and be like, And I remember getting very triggered by that comment because I was like, what? I'm here and I'm drowning in this content. And like that doesn't even make sense to me, especially because we've had women dealing with eating disorders and self-harm and abuse. And it was like, what a callous comment, like what? And then 6 months later, I found myself passing the mirror and going, oh boy, So these things do happen and it may not be what you expect, okay? It may not be like, oh my gosh, now every mikvah night is amazing. But maybe you're going to be in the mikvah and having a whole different experience, okay? So you may not have, or you may learn for yourself what may work differently, and you may be able to come to your spouse and say, hey, would it be okay if we tried something a little different? Like I know for myself over the years, at one point, mikvah night tends to be disappointing for a lot of people. Let's just put it out there. We as women, we spend 2 weeks, like literal 2 weeks counting, and the husband is like, oh, it's tonight? I had no idea. And we're like, dude, that was like 2 weeks. Where have you been? And at one point I just told my husband, you know what I need from you? I need you to meet me. So like I spent 2 weeks meeting you. I want you to do something for me. Like buy me a muffin, like buy me a gift, like do something, buy me flowers, just like one small thing. And because these little things make a huge difference. So you may not get the complete answer that you're looking for, but you're going to get so much more awareness about what is working for you, what's not working for you, and how to navigate that on your own. So yeah, it's not going to fix you, but it's going to give you a lot of information. And again, I always feel hesitant about this because I don't want to sell you. I'm really not here. This course is expensive. Let's just put it out there. It's expensive. Yes, I offer payment plans, but it's a lot of money. And I never feel comfortable telling people, you should spend all of your money on my content. If I feel like I could actually hook you up with someone better or someone who can give you more of what you're looking for, it is my pleasure to do so. But when people ask a question, I always like undersell and I'm kind of like, no, don't come to me. But I'm going to be honest. I think you are going to get a lot of what you're looking for in this course, even though it's not going to give you 100% of like, oh, it's not going to erase everything you're struggling with. All right. Someone says, you just spoke for an hour straight about the course. Of course, the actual course is loaded. All of your participants can give you credentials. Thank you. Okay, so someone says, would you say there's harm in doing Ignite first? Okay, so I answered that question already. Someone says, your realness is what makes you the teacher that you are. Actually, you're not a teacher, you're a leader because you keep the humanness in it. Thank you. Yeah, I feel like that's one of my things. I really need people to know I don't have all the answers. I'm learning with you. On this last cohort of Vessel, somebody asked if I could upload the Q&As of prior years because the Q&As are so full of content that women wanted to have access to the prior Q&As that I had given in other cohorts. And I said, no, I'm not ready to put them out there because I don't actually know what I've said on other Q&As because I'm evolving. I'm not the same person that I was last year and 2 years ago when I taught it. So it could be that I said things then that I absolutely disagree with right now. And I'm very comfortable with that. I'm very comfortable with the idea that I'm constantly changing. And that's why I invite you along for the ride. Like I'm more than comfortable with someone saying, Fally, you taught something this year that you were completely against last year. And I'll be like, yes, let me tell you what changed. Let me tell you why that happened. So I'm not here to say that I have all the answers. My credentials don't mean anything. Like to have letters after my name really don't mean anything because I'm not coming to you as a professional. I'm coming to you as a human, as a mother, as a wife, as a woman who's consistently learning these things together with you. Okay. Someone asked if this course is good for women who are in premenopause. Yes. So this is the irony of this course is that I created this course when I was in menopause. I was told that I could never have more children. I went into premature ovarian failure at age 24, which is really normal. I know it sounds like a tragedy, but for me, that was actually something that I expected, having been a cancer survivor in my teens. So when I got married, we didn't even know if we would ever have children. I always knew that infertility was going to be a thing. And it turned out for me, it was secondary infertility. I got very blessed and I had my first children. And then I went into menopause, like full on menopause, did not cycle for 10 years. So when I first started teaching Ignite, I was in menopause and I was teaching this content anyway, because this content I think is universal. It turned out that something happened. My body kickstarted into gear after 10 years and I had another child. Some of you who have known my journey, I had a child after 10 years of knowing that I was in menopause. In fact, I had 2 children, and then I was told I would never have my third. My third child was born at the onset of menopause. And so the doctors always told me, like, I could never, this third child was my miracle child because my body was already going into menopause. So when I knew that I was in menopause, I was actually really comfortable because I was like, you know what? I had my children, I had my miracle child, I had everything. And then the body surprises us. The body is so much wiser than we give it credit for. I'm a very big fan of Western medicine because it saved my life, but I'm also very passionate about bringing back the ancient wisdom that we've abided by for thousands of years, because I think that Western medicine is fairly young, it's fairly new, and there's ancient wisdom that's much more old, much more sacred, and much more valuable and potent, and I think we can come back there. So yes, this course is for you even if you're premenopause or in menopause, because it doesn't really have, I mean, we cover so much content that it doesn't really, it doesn't really matter what stage of womanhood you're in. Okay, someone says, I'm doing Vessel for the first time and focusing on the lecture and Q&A. I just got a new therapist and she commented that I'm so full of info in my head, but she doesn't sense that I'm actually feeling the info. I'm dying to hear the info on Ignite as I've been struggling with intimacy for years. I know that I'm probably only going to listen to the lectures and the Q&A, but now I'm confused if I should do it and fill up with even more info or give my brain a break. So it's hard to say because, like I said, it's a lot of info. And I think it's very important to, yes, do some of the exercises. Like if you could do at minimum 1 meditation a week, I think it's going to change everything for you, because the info is like a cloud that sits on top of your head and we need a funnel. We need to get it into the body. So the meditations are a way for the info to start integrating and landing in the body. So even though I say there's no right or wrong way to do the course, if you're a head person, it's really important, if you want to start integrating this stuff, to do at least, like, I think 1 meditation a week. Someone is saying that I keep saying it's going to get worse before it gets better. Someone is giving me a good way to reframe it. I think the words that you're looking for are, you may feel that things are getting heavier before you feel lighter. Thank you. I think we should just not post this entire call. I should re-give this entire exploratory call more professionally, more smoothly, and using those words. Thank you. Yes, you may feel a little heavier. But again, heavier doesn't mean bad, because you're going to really appreciate the gravity of how wonderful and intelligent and wise your body is. So people often experience grief in the first few weeks of Ignite when they're like, oh no, like there's so much I didn't know, or there's so much I did wrong, and how far have we come? And it's like, so what? You can restart. Today is a new day. Today is the first day of the rest of your life. So yes, in the beginning, you might feel a little heavy, as a lot of these new things are coming into you and a lot of old things are coming out of you, but you will feel lighter eventually. Someone says, just tell everyone they don't even need to listen to this intro call. They should just take the course. You know, like Nike says, just do it. Okay, someone asks, how much does this course cost? So I will be very honest with you. The course has changed price over the years because I was always undercharging for this course because I built it up over time. I'm still raising prices for the course. It's not, I'm really giving it for less than it's worth. I'm charging $12.50 this year. And by this year, I'm saying it's the cohort of 2024, because we're literally starting New Year's 2024. And I fully expect the course to keep going up in price, because the amount of content, the amount of information that you get is way beyond what I'm charging for this course. And the fact that you keep coming back every year, the Q&As are new every year, and I'm always updating. If there's a meditation that I don't like, I redo it next year, or I give you an extra meditation, or I'm giving you extra worksheets. So currently the course is priced at $12.50, but it's very likely going to go up in the future. To give you an idea, this course was going up by $200 every year, because I didn't want to, launch it at like a soft price one year and then just go all the way up to where I wanted. So every year it's been going up by $200. Last year, this course was $10.50. This year it's $12.50. And maybe next year it'll be $15. I don't know. But there are payment plans set up. So if you go to my website where you can register, you will see that on the checkout page, there's a small link if you do want a payment plan. So I'm very flexible about those things. All right. We're talking for a long time. I'm talking for a long time. I'm talking for an hour and a half already. So that's a very, very long time. I want to thank all of you for joining me on this call today. And for sure, if you still have more questions, you can always respond to the marketing emails. I try my very best to answer them. This call the recording is gonna go up a little later, so you'll get an email with this information as well. Feel free to forward these emails or this call, this recording, to anyone in your life that you feel could benefit. And I hope to see you all there in Module 1 really soon. Have a great one, everybody.